Hattie, and I am back with part 2 of the Hamptons mansion, which I was building about a week ago. So this is the interior of the build, and I had a lot of fun doing the interior because it was such a big house. It was actually a lot bigger than I thought it would be. I didn't realise that it got so big. I think it's because of the L shape. It just looked really, really big when I was decorating it, and I had a lot more rooms than I thought I would have. What I was doing at this point is I got the interior layout sorted and I started putting the doors in. I used a lot of really, really big glass doors because I thought that it would look really good from a modern point of view, maybe just a modern touch on this build, because I don't usually do modern houses, even though I have done quite a lot recently. But I thought for this build it would look really good if I did just include some modern style doors. That's what I did there. This was the main stairway going up, so even though the build does actually have 2 front entrances, I thought to just have one staircase in the middle there would look a lot nicer than having 2 really big staircases across the house. And it also gave me a lot more room for the bedrooms upstairs, so that was really helpful, just having one staircase rather than 2. I did think about it, but I thought it would just take too much space up, so that is why I didn't. Then what I was doing is I was picking out the wallpapers, so I went with a cream style wallpaper in the hallway, but I think that changes soon, so bear with me. But it was really odd because all the furniture that I chose went with the other colour that I chose, and it actually looked better, so I think that's what happened in the end. I was using a lot of wallpapers as well because I usually just use paints, and I didn't do that this time because I thought that wallpapers just looked a lot better. It also looked a lot richer for the build, and I wanted it to look like a wealthy family would live here, and it would be a wealthy family home as opposed to just a home which would just have paint on the walls. I thought wallpaper just gave that little bit extra, so that is why I decided to do that. This was when I was filling up the hallway. So for the hallway I went with a striped rug, and I just went with some general pictures around. I couldn't think about the type of family that would live here, and I actually got a really amazing suggestion in the comments, I think a couple of videos ago now, where somebody asked if I was going to recreate the families that would potentially live in the builds that I create, and that is a really interesting idea, and it's something that I'm definitely thinking about. So if you are interested in seeing that and you'd want to see the family that I would put in this home and what I would imagine them to look like, to be like, their careers, everything, then let me know in the comments, because that's something that I'm definitely considering. This was when I was playing around with the moving objects cheat. So what I was doing on the walls here, I was trying to create something really individual, and that is what I intended for that part. I did actually leave it like that. I also thought about a fountain, maybe a water fountain behind it, and that would give a little bit extra to that part of the build, but then I decided against it, so that's why I didn't. I actually did something very similar in the Bloom's Modern Family Home. So if you've seen that build, which I think you would have done by now, it's very similar to that in the interior. So I don't know if the interior, you'll see it before this video comes out, but I think the interior for that part looks very similar to what I did on that wall. This is when I was experimenting with mirrors. So I thought 3 mirrors just in the hallway there looked good. I don't know, I was just trying to fill it up a bit. I couldn't really think about what to put there instead of just putting mirrors in, so that is why I just added loads of things on the walls that I thought would look really interesting and different. And then the hallway down here, I tried to not fill it up too much, so I did actually take out the fireplace and I just left some pictures around. I didn't want to clutter it up, so I think I just ended it with just some lights and some plants, things like that. The build itself has a lot of hallways in it, and I think that's probably because of the shape of it. Because it's an L shape, it just gave me a lot more room to add hallways, and I like long hallways. I like them probably because I lived in an L-shaped house myself when I lived in England, and we had a lot of hallways, so I think I probably got it from there, and it did remind me a little bit of one of my old houses that I used to live in. But anyway, what I was doing is I was putting some pink plants in the hallway. I think I changed the colour of them though, I'm not sure. I do like a little bit of pink in the hallways because I do like the colour pink. In fact, it's one of my favourite colours. So I do include some pink plants in this build, and I thought they looked really good. It looked really classy with the build, maybe just not too much pink though, because too much pink would look like a Barbie home. It would just look too pink, too girly, so I thought that adding little features just looked a lot better. So that was how the hallway finished off, and I don't think that I added anything else to it. I did add some curtains, I added some base game curtains, and I also added some movie hangout stuff pack curtains. And it's sometimes difficult to realise when they are completely equal on both sides. I think in the pomegranate house that I recently did, I think the curtains were slightly uneven in Scarlett's room, so I am going to fix those if you do watch it, and if you're wondering what on earth is going on with those. It's just because sometimes when I'm focusing on my builds, it's just so difficult to realise if I've done something wrong. So that's sometimes why, if there is maybe a part of the roofing on some of my builds that's been a bit left or something, that's probably why, because if I'm looking at a build for hours on end, it's so incredibly difficult to realise each mistake. But I try and go back afterwards and correct it anyway. This was the study. So this was actually one of my favourite rooms. I really liked the bookcase idea. So what I did was I used the surfaces, cupboards, and I put some in the middle, and I also put some along the top. And I think it looked really good. So I actually used that upstairs as well, and I thought it looked very classy for this room. I wanted the study to be quite a casual room, I think. I don't know who would work in here. I don't know what sort of career track they would have. I thought about making it a relaxing room, so maybe it would be a very stressful job. So they'd need a very therapeutic, relaxing room. For the mirrors, I used the moving objects cheat, which was really handy to use. And also, it didn't glitch, and I really dislike when sometimes with the moving objects cheat, some things can twitch whilst you're playing. I think that's the best way of describing it. So if you had two tables coming into each other, they just twitch during gameplay or any time that you rotated the screen. So I thought that that looked good because it didn't do that, and I like finding objects that doesn't happen with, because I don't like using a lot of moving objects cheats because it does frustrate me a bit. But yeah, so what I was doing here is I was adding the rug to the floor. I couldn't decide what to go with. I'd already used half the rug choice that we get, so I wanted to go something a little bit different, and I think I went with that colour in the end. I think the room in here did turn out quite nicely though, because one side of the room is very relaxing and therapeutic, and the other side is just very businessy. So I liked it in the end, and I think it would be a really handy room. I think all the enlarged objects look really good here, and I did enjoy going around the build and enlarging a lot of things. And I do use that cheat a lot, which I don't think really interferes with anything, so that's not a worry for me. And I know that it's become quite a popular cheat, especially with landscaping, because landscaping enlarged, I feel, looks really good, and I use it all the time. This is a back corridor in the build, so this is another way that the family could potentially enter the dining room. I think that's what it was in the end. So the room to the right of this room, I think that was the dining room, but I can't remember what that was. So this was another hallway here, so lots and lots of little separated hallways, and this was a bathroom. So this was the first bathroom that I added. I really have liked doing bathrooms recently. It's not the biggest room. In fact, I don't like to use bathrooms to be the biggest rooms in my builds, because I think that they will pretty much fit everything in there that they need to fit in a really tiny space, and it doesn't take away too much space from the build. So this was a really small room there, but I think the build itself probably ended up with about 5 bathrooms. In fact, I think it was 4 bedrooms as well, so more bathrooms than there were bedrooms, which is pretty unusual for my builds, but a very luxurious build, and I think having loads of ensuite bathrooms is just a really nice look to it. So this was a dining room in here. I didn't know that this room was the dining room, I thought the other room was, but this was a very long room. I think that it ended up having quite a few bookcases there. I love those bookcases that we get. I had to use the Unlocks entitlement cheat to get them though. So you can only get them through the career track unless you use the cheat to do it, and I did, unfortunately. So I didn't earn them the honest way, but I think that they still look really good in the build, and I think they're a lot better than the other bookcase choices, and I just think that they match a lot more, which I was definitely trying to focus on throughout the build. I was trying to match absolutely everything. So if you haven't noticed by now, I'm following quite a rough colour scheme throughout. I think it's maybe a collection of creams, whites, light greys. I don't know, it just all sort of blends in together, and I like that. I know that it's not to everyone's taste to use maybe the same repeated colours throughout, but I think for a matching home, and a home that is supposed to look quite wealthy, I think, then that is what I would expect it to have. I would probably expect maybe an interior designer to have come and had one look at this build and said, right, well, we're going to have every single room matching and it's going to look really neat and just wonderful instead of having lots and lots of different coloured rooms. That's what I'd really imagined this family home to look like inside. This was the kitchen. So the kitchen was the room that had the other front door inside, so you can actually enter the kitchen from the outside, and that is one of the main entrances. So it's a bit of an unusual room and there's not actually a lot of space in here, but I think it looks pretty good by the end, especially when the family could sit down all together on the stools and they could just sit on the bar. I just love that. So I put in 3 stools there and I thought that looked really good. And the kitchen itself was quite a modern room, and I think if you like modern interiors, I think the kitchen is one of those. So I think that if you're into modern interiors, then I think you'll like the kitchen. But what I did was I included a lot of seating in here, and I think that I regretted it maybe towards the end. So I moved the table back a bit, and I think once I did that and I had a little bit of a readjustment in here, I thought it looked really good. So that's what I was really doing. I was also trying to find a good place to put the fridge because I couldn't find one. And I also wanted a stove in here. I try to never forget the stove because the stove is a very important cooking utensil to use. So I thought, you know, it's just very important it being there, and that is what I definitely wanted to remember. I think I used an outdoor bin for this room, which does look a little bit odd, but it was one of the only bins that really did match, so that's why I left it in there. This room in here was the music room. I thought it was a perfect shape for a piano, especially as the room shape itself does look roughly like the top shape of a grand piano would, I think anyway. So yeah, that's what I did, and I just put a piano in the middle. I thought putting some seats around it would look really nice as well, especially as the family can just sit in here and they can enjoy their music. Maybe they'd be very talented in just various things, maybe music and arts, things like that. Maybe that's what they'd spend their time doing. So I put lots of mirrors in, and I also put a chess table because I definitely needed one of those in. I think I also included one outside, but I just can't remember. It's been so long since I did the outside. I do like the garden though. I think it's quite a nice open area and it would be really good for parties. So I'd love to see if anybody does use this home, and if you do use it for parties, then you can tweet me some pictures if you want to do that. This is the lounge in here. So the lounge was a striped room. I thought that the wallpaper looked really good and it just looked very, very posh to me. I don't know what it was, but I thought that it did. And I had a blue theme in here. So it's still keeping with the whole pale theme of the build, but I think that the pale blue looked really nice. It wasn't too bright, and I think that this is probably one of my favourite rooms as well. I tried to use some more activity things in here, so things that the family could potentially do for a hobby. And I did think about putting some spa day things in, but I don't think that I did in the end. So I think I just left it being a canvas, and I put lots of treasure chests around the build. And I think the treasure chests are for collecting things. So if your family had any insects, or I think frogs, things like that you can collect, I think that's where they go, but I honestly don't know. So if you know what those chests are for, please let me know in the comments below, because I honestly have no idea because I haven't used them yet. This was a room that the family can sit in and play Jenga. I think that that is a really fun family activity for them to do. So I like the look of that, and I think it turned out quite nicely, and it did sort of blend in with the lounge. It was a bit of a cross between the lounge and every other room in the build colour-wise, so I liked that. And then I wanted a bar in the build. I definitely wanted one of those, and I thought it would just look really wrong to have carpet in a bar. I think because I would just imagine lots of drinks getting spilt in here probably, and it just wouldn't be a very practical room to have carpet in. So I took the carpet out, I put some tiles there, and I thought that looked a lot better. So if the family was to have some big parties, this would be a perfect room for that. And if you did have the luxury stuff pack, I think it's called, I don't know though. So it's the one where you get the fountains from, and you can have a chocolate fountain, things like that for parties. Then you could have them all in here, and this could also be a wedding party, so you could probably have a wedding in the house. This would be a really pretty venue actually, and you could have the wedding outside, you could come in and you could have it here. I think that I did think about having the wedding at one of my parents' friend's house. They offered if we wanted to use their house, and it was really kind of them. So that was where our wedding was nearly going to be placed, and we decided on a venue in the end. But I think weddings at houses do look really pretty, especially in settings like this. It's just a really nice venue to have. But this was the upstairs, so this was the bit that we went on to doing. There are a lot of rooms up here, probably too many. I used a lot of different rooms, lots of small rooms as well, and a lot of these rooms did have storage cabinets in, and I like that. I like the fact that we do have a lot of storage cabinets in The Sims 4 now, especially with the Sims 4 Get Together expansion pack. They did give us, I think, maybe 2 or 3 storage cabinets, and they're usable as well, so I love that. And there were just so many places that I could have put them. I think I actually used 2 upstairs, but I honestly can't remember. There were just so many rooms here. And what I was also doing is I was dragging some of the colours from the downstairs to the upstairs because that was very important. And also I wanted it all to match entirely, so I didn't want to start using different colours on the upstairs. So to make it look like it all did flow through, I thought that would be a really good idea. So lots and lots of the colour schemes that we used downstairs were also used on the upstairs. I was also planning where I'd put the bathrooms. It was very difficult because I didn't want too many bathrooms in this build. And I think at this point as well, the build was probably heading for about 5 or 6 bathrooms alone. So I think that I did end up converting quite a few bathrooms to be bedrooms in the end. And what I also did was I popped onto live mode because I moved a family in here just briefly, and I changed the lighting colour, and that is something that I've recently done. It was a fantastic suggestion that I got from the Hogwarts build that I did, and as soon as I figured out how to do that, I was honestly so incredibly happy, and it just looks so much better. And I know that it's not going to be to everybody's tastes, and everyone's going to have a different opinion, and some people might like the yellowy colour that we get with the natural light colour, but I think that the light colour being a really white colour, it just looks so much better for this build, and I was really happy with it by the end. This was the main bedroom, or at least one of the main bedrooms. So what I did was I put a half wall where the bed is, and I had it being in the middle. I think I got this idea when I went to Montreux in Switzerland with my fiance, and we went on holiday maybe for a couple of days, and we stayed in a room there, and it was just very similar to how we're seeing it now. It had the bed being in the middle, and it had a half wall behind it. And I think behind the half wall, that was where the bathroom and things were. So there was a separate area, separate closed off rooms behind there, but it just looked really good. So I got the idea from there, I think. And I took some inspiration from it. So I left it like that, and I thought that it looked very modern, and I would imagine that this would be very accurate to a room that would be in a build like this. But I don't know, of course. Every single interior on a Hamptons mansion is going to be completely different, and of course every single family has different tastes on everything, so you never really know what is going to be in one. This was a bathroom in here, so the bathroom was very tiled. I don't usually do tiled rooms, and tiled rooms, or maybe entirely tiled rooms, aren't something that I particularly like. I think the flooring and also the walls and sometimes the ceilings, when it's all tiled, it's just too much for me. But I think I left it like that just because I think it looked pretty good in the end, and it looks very clean. It looks very bright in there, so that's what I left it as. And this was another bathroom in here, so this one had some white walls instead, and all the bathrooms in the build ended up being a white colour. They had a generic look to them. I didn't want them to look too different to anything else, and I thought instead of having some fancy colour to the bathrooms as well, I'd maybe save it for some of the bedrooms and have some nice girly rooms. This was the baby's bedroom, so I did have a baby's bedroom. I thought that this was just a really sweet little room, and you could easily change it to a children's bedroom if the child ever grew up, and you could have that as this room. It just depends on what you want, and that's how I left it. So there's lots of space to expand things if you wanted to. And this was an open area. I thought about having something that could be used as a skill building item, so I think I left it being that chair there. I have used it in the Sims gameplay now, so I have tried it out, and it's quite a fun thing to use, so I like that. I think it looks pretty good. And I thought I'd have this section just being the children's section of the house, so I did include another children's bedroom here. That's probably my favourite style of bed. I think my sister had very similar bedding to that in my old house, actually. She had a very similar bed to that. I used quite a lot of paintings and decorations on the walls, and I did also put some club banners in. So I used the rainbow club banners, and I think that they just look really good. And it's also the same club as Scarlett is in my Sims 4 Pomegranates Let's Play. So the family that I might move in here might have a daughter which is in the same group as Scarlett. I'm just not sure. This was a games room, so I don't oftenly include a room like this, but I thought because it's a modern home and I wanted them to have lots of technology as well, I thought I would include this room. So I went with the most expensive game pad, I think that's what you call it, but I don't know. So it's the one that the Sims absolutely love to use, and every single time I put one of those in a build that I do, the Sims automatically just run over to it and use it just straight away, more or less. This was, I think, the last bathroom that I did. Thank goodness. I'm really happy that I didn't have to do another one of these because it was just such a big house that was just filled with bathrooms. So it's just another generic bathroom, but it's an L shape just like the build is. So it was quite a nice room. And I did also use the most expensive bath in there, which was also quite a nice feature. I did fill up the hallway down here. I thought that putting in some places for the family to sit, maybe they get tired with all the walking that they'd have to do around the build, so maybe that would be a good idea. And I did repeat the picture that I used downstairs. In fact, I think I did repeat that picture maybe 2 or 3 times during the build. I really hope that eventually we will get some more choices for paintings because I am running out, and I love using paintings that we do get, and I think the paintings that we do have look really good, but sometimes it would be nice for a little bit more choice. I'd love that. This was the other main bedroom, so there was another main bedroom here. So depending on which main bedroom you wanted to use, you could use either. You could also split them into 2 rooms if you wanted to. It's completely up to you what you'd want to do with it. I really liked how the chimney sort of came through this room. I thought that it looked really good, and I left it like that. Surprisingly, I don't usually do that, but I thought that it looked really good, especially as it didn't glitch out as well. I just thought that it gave a really good feature to the build, so I left it. And it looked very nice on the outside of the build as well, which is very rare that that happens. But that was the end of the build, so I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope to see your future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you all soon.